Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome back to Wine and Chill. Usually, our lives on Thursday. However, there's construction going on in my building. So, hopefully, it's not too loud right now. Last night was entirely too loud. Also, because of construction, the Wi Fi is living its own life. So, fingers crossed, we get through the entire live without it cutting off. We're about to see. How are y'all doing? If you're off work or you're deciding to take off work a little bit earlier, good afternoon. Cheers to the weekend. Today, we're going to talk about Twitter. We're going to talk about Twitter and Elon Musk. Let me know if y'all can hear me. Everything is working. Hopefully, it works. The story has been developing for quite a while, but now I think we're at a place where shit has really hit the fan. So, we might as well just do the video now. Because for a while, I've had it on the back burner of when are we finally going to do this video. And I figured today was a good day. Awesome. So here goes our agenda. We're going to go over a few Twitter stats just because it will set the scene for why the tone at Twitter is the way it is. Then we are going to basically get into how the hoods are coming off at Twitter. Interesting. Elon Musk and the new fiefdom, and then layoffs and lawsuits. So the current layoffs, which started occurring yesterday into today, there already is a class action lawsuit against a one Twitter Inc. And likely solely the fault of a one Elon Musk, which we'll get into that as well. Awesome. All right, good. Everyone can hear me? Wonderful. Happy Friday. Okay, so a few Twitter statistics. So, Twitter is a widespread social media platform, also a hellscape on the internet that, some people like to use. In the United States, estimated about 25% of the US population uses Twitter, which is around 676.977 million-ish people. After the US in highest usage, we have Japan with 58 million people, India 23 million, Brazil 19 million, Indonesia 18 million, then the UK also with 18. Y'all know I cannot see y'all. All right. So, what's really interesting about the demographics is the majority of the Twitter users are actually in the United States, and the majority of those users are also male. This statistic from Omnicore, I would say in terms of the gender dynamic, it doesn't include non-binary people. First and foremost, it's solely on the binary, so it doesn't have that information, which would be useful. And also, this statistic, it might be skewed a little bit more equitable. Some other statistics I saw, just to put that out there, everything else seems about the same, where according to Omnicore, 70% of Twitter users are male and 29.6% of Twitter users are female. And that is not because women don't want to use Twitter. That is because, again, Twitter is a hellscape on the internet at times, which we will very much be getting into the harassment in a second. So 23% of US adults use Twitter. So Twitter really is a snapshot of society. It is not everyone's thoughts. Worldwide, there are about 217 million daily active users. And in the US, 38 million monetizable daily active users. And in the US, 46% of the 25% use Twitter on a daily basis. So if you're a Twitter user, you're definitely an avid Twitter user. And one of the things I thought that was very interesting, this statistic is me, and this is a lot of people. And this is why Twitter has really, I think, in my opinion, kept its lasting power, which is every month around 500 million people access Twitter without logging in. There are lots of people using Twitter that do not go on Twitter. I'm one of those people. I peruse around. Y'all send me Twitter threads. I look around. I sometimes look at the news, see what's trending on Twitter. I don't get on Twitter. I refuse to get on Twitter because Twitter loves harassment. Twitter does not moderate their content well, and Twitter overall is a very lawless place. And with the insertion of a one billionaire, Elon Musk, it has become the Wild West, and foolishness has abounded. So let's get into that. Also, before we hop over into the next section, Twitter has become such a toxic place that at one point, Amnesty International made an entire report how Twitter is a toxic place for women and how Twitter specifically is causing violence against women. Just to put that out there. But people are on it. I would say the parts of Twitter that I enjoy as a non-user are people do send me lots of funny memes from Black Twitter, and the threads are interesting. So it can be hit or miss. It's either going to ruin your life or it's going to be funny. I don't think it really has any middle ground. ACO420, I live on Twitter and it's violence. And then Robin Moore, Twitter has been my preferred social media platform. And then Lydia, I'm that person, only go there to watch a video. I deleted my account years ago. Exactly. All right. So whether you're on it officially or not, you're probably familiar with Twitter and you're probably familiar with what happened literally moments after Elon Musk announced that he was finally ending his indecisive behavior and actually going through with buying Twitter. Everyone and their mama decided that they wanted to say the N word on Twitter. And specifically, these are just racists that are saying the N word. It's not, hey, homeboy, how you doing type of N word that's going on. I'm talking about hard ER. Elon Musk's Twitter takeover sparked a surge in the use of the N word on the platform. A social media research group told the Washington Post that the use of the slur increased by nearly 500%. What I found really interesting and disingenuous from a lot of mainstream media outlets, such as the Washington Post, CNN, etc., then tried to spin it as these are bots just testing to see how far they can take freedom of speech. Nah, these are regular people that have been waiting to say the N-word. These are regular people who feel like it's their right to just say it, to go and aggress others. That's all it is, under the fake guise of freedom of speech, which that is not what freedom of speech means. We have laws in place that prevent hate speech. Also, for the umpteenth time, because people are dense, Twitter is a private company, and private companies have their own rules. So Twitter blames the N-word. So this is from Variety. Twitter blames the N-word, other racist slurs following Musk's takeover on an organized troll campaign. Racist tweets quickly surface after Musk closes Twitter deal. And this is moments after, which would lead you to believe that the new owner is not clearly a fan or proponent of the blacks, obviously. Through, not only the fact that he's apartheid's favorite son, but other actions that he has done throughout the years. That has not stopped his huge internet following, mostly of impressionable young white men who themselves think that they too, through hard work, aka bamboozling others, can also become a billionaire. Love to break this to you. It's not going to happen for you, sweetie. Not in this lifetime, probably not in the next. This is Elon Musk, in case you were familiar with what he looks like. Interesting. And just days after deciding to become the owner and the majority stakeholder of Twitter, Elon Musk tweeted out an unfounded anti-LGBTQ conspiracy theory about Paul Pelosi attack. Paul Pelosi is the husband of Nancy Pelosi. Unfortunately, someone broke into their home, allegedly asked for Nancy, and instead decided to strike Paul numerous times, and what I would classify as attempted murder, with a hammer. Paul is a very elderly man. Elon then took it upon himself to tweet out a far-right conspiracy article, if we want to call it that, a blog, honey, a blog, because he just felt like people weren't being honest as to what the nature of the attack was. It's a very dangerous game when you let one person decide what is appropriate and what is not misinformation. They're going to erase it. He's been on a campaign for a long time to get that information erased. And it's very interesting. It's very interesting because people love to pretend, and he loves to pretend, that he's self-made. Elon Musk is rich because he has generational wealth. Elon Musk is also rich because he had a small tech startup, and the tech startup didn't do that well. It didn't become a Google or a Facebook or an Apple. Instead, a larger tech company decided, you know what? Let's do a hostile takeover. We can pay this young man out. We'll make him a millionaire. We'll get rid of him. And he used that seed money he received from basically being a hostile acquisition that was in his favor. And he used that money and basically attached himself to other tech companies he knew were doing well. He did not found Tesla. He is just a major investor and is the CEO. He's not the famous founder of anything. Mark Zuckerberg is a fool, a jackass, and doesn't care about democracy either. But Mark Zuckerberg actually, somewhat for the most part, depending on if you believe the Winklevoss twins, founded Facebook. Elon didn't even do that. All right. I thought it was a really good article, which Y'all can look it up. I don't have the link because I read it and then I forgot about it. From Time Magazine by Evan Greer, called Elon Musk is the Lord of Twitter and We Are the Peasants. I've said this before, that essentially where we're moving towards with all of this controlled society and all of this, the attack on free speech, I think, is really interesting. That argument made from very conservative, I don't even know if they're fringe at this point. A lot of people believe this. Very conservative right-wing groups, whenever they say attack on free speech, is just an attack on people saying, no, that's racist. No, that's hate speech. No, you are yelling fire in a movie theater. Of course you cannot do that. A stampede will happen. The attack on free speech that's actually happening is mostly to marginalized groups, where if you go and you say something, a good example of this, if you go on that Kanye video I did, not the first one where we covered Kanye and his White Lives Matter shirts and his foolishness and his all-out anti-blackness that he has internalized and lived by for the past decade. If you go on the other video where we talked about his Adidas contract, where literally he's only actually mentioned for maybe 10 minutes in an hour-long video, 50 minutes of the video is just basic provisions in a contract. If you go through the comments, which I've started monitoring some of it, and then it got too overwhelming, so I stopped looking at it, and then I started having to block words. There were so many comments in there of people who did not like that I said Kanye West doesn't own these things, and pulled up the trademark, and then pulled up how would a joint partnership work. They didn't like that I let them know, okay, this is what you should advocate for in your contract. They didn't like any of that. Called me a mammy. First of all, that's not how the word is used. First and foremost, boo, read a book. I know your fave doesn't read, but you should read. Inserted random and very wild statements about Jewish people for no reason, hatred, stated all these things. And the people that receive the most hate online, unfortunately, are Black women and femmes. Anyone who actually has a marginalized identity where people think, I'm going to bully this person to being quiet. It's not the white men. The white men are not oppressed. Honey, online, the white women sometimes. It's not the white men complaining that their freedom of speech is being taken away. No, Bob, you just cannot say these racist things without consequence anymore. That's all that's happening. And one of the interesting points in this article, why I bring this article up, is it's day 7. I'm going to read this excerpt. Let me make this a little bigger. It's day 7 of Elon Musk owning Twitter, and he's making stream of consciousness policy announcements in a thread on the platform. Musk promises to end Twitter's current lords and peasants system, which is very ironic, very, very ironic that he says these things, while rolling out plans for users to pay $8 a month in order to remain verified and have their posts prioritized in replies and mentions and search. When you start to require people to pay for something that is essential and integral to everyone having their opinion, who wants to be on Twitter, heard, and saying, all right, you can pay, in your opinion, whether it's loud, wrong, foolish, or otherwise, can be highlighted, can be the top opinion because you paid money, you're going to run into a problem. There are plenty of people that are very bright and very poor because America is not a meritocracy. There are plenty of people that have excellent ideas that very much have spearheaded things. Tashana. Hold on. Miss Burke. I always forget what her first name is. Is it Tashana Burke? I think it's Tashana. Yep, it is Tashana. Okay. Tashana Burke is actually the founder of the Me Too movement, but because people are racist, colorist, featurist, the list is very long, they didn't make her the face of the Me Too movement. They took it from her and assigned it to Alyssa Milano, even though Tashana did all of the work. With the current system that Elon Musk is proposing, people will very much, others will take credit for their work. Everything will go astray, and it will not be what is very much left of the little meritocracy that is on Twitter to begin with. I thought this quote was very good. Let me move me so I can lean in, child. Oh no, I cannot see. Tirana. Okay, I was like, somebody else came up. Okay, Tirana. Thank you for that. I was like, I always forget what her first name is, but I always remember her last name. But even if he were the courageous, rights-defending super genius, people love to think their fave billionaire or former billionaire is a genius. I find it very fascinating. They just know how to con people, and they know how to get others to do work for them. That's the only way you become a billionaire. That's the only way it happens. that his supporters seem to think he is, Musk claims that the bird is freed would be a bluster at best. The truth is that we will never have meaningful free speech or human rights as long as we're all digitally landless, paying rent in dollars or data. If we want a modern town square we can leave to our children and our children's children, we need to build online spaces that can't be owned or controlled by a single person, with tools to address harm, harassment, and injustice that give individuals and communities power over our own online experience. If you have people having to pay for things, you will have, there was a book, I put it on Instagram, or like I put my thoughts, I didn't put the actual book. I put my thoughts about it on Instagram maybe a couple months ago. A book written about Black women's experiences, but a white woman wrote the book. We don't have to sit here for 10 minutes and talk about why that's problematic. Why? And she didn't put herself on the cover because, mind you, it wasn't about her. It was about Black women. She put Black women on the cover. You wouldn't even know anywhere that a white woman had wrote the book until people started digging it up and were like, this is very strange. This is very odd behavior. Like, why would you do this? It would be a similar occurrence. And I think because we are many generations, hundreds of years removed from the feudal system, and because the education system is crap, people maybe have forgotten the feudal system, we are not that far removed. We are in a feudal-esque system that just has Wi-Fi. And the Wi-Fi can allow you to at least have your voice told without technically getting hung in the square. But we don't have a meritocracy in that, yeah, if I'm working hard equals lots of money. Working hard equals access to healthcare. Working hard equals I have a regular apartment where the Wi-Fi always works. There are plenty of people that work hard and are still in forced poverty. So this is one of the sections from Britannica about feudalism. In the absence of forceful kings and emperors, local lords expanded the territory subject to them and intensified their control over the people living there. In many areas, the term feudum, as well as the terms beneficium and, Lord, I'm messing up the Latin, casamentum, came to be used to describe a form of property holding. The holdings these terms denoted have often been considered essentially dependent tenures over which their holders' rights were notably limited. If Elon Musk is the end-all be-all of like, you know what? Fire the content moderators, fire the CEO. He fired the head of law and policy, the legal and policy department, the head of the department on his first day as well. Getting rid of the executives when you do, I don't know if we'd classify it as a hostile takeover, but doing a merger and acquisition, that's normal. To fire the head of legal, the person who's there to make sure like, hey, we have to make sure we have content moderation. We have to make sure that people aren't all out harassing people, that people aren't doxing people, which is rampant on Twitter, that people aren't setting troll mobs on others simply because they don't like them. Without that, it will become even more of a lawless place. And I think what's interesting is the reason why, I know the Time article said $8. I've seen something say like $20 to keep your blue check. The blue checks really love their blue checks. I'm sure they'll pay for it. Is because the advertising model that Twitter is using makes the company beholden to advertising, which that does make sense. But then the companies, the advertisers are like, all right, well, if you don't want to do this, like we'll just leave. We have TikTok, we have YouTube, we have all these things. So a lot of the brands are basically saying goodbye. General Mills, which owns basically all the cereal, is borderline a cereal monopoly at this point. They said goodbye. L'Oreal, I believe, said goodbye. And I just wanted to highlight this article. So I thought it was very funny. Brands are quiet quitting Twitter over worries of what Musk will bring. So shout out to Sophie that wrote this at Fortune, because I know she just wanted to get those SEO words in. Because I was like, boo, that's not what quiet quitting means. And quiet quitting is farce and nonsense, but that did make me laugh. That did make me laugh. All right. Elizabeth, I work in IT compliance. It will be the wild, wild west. And the people that will play the brunt of this are most likely activists. There are a lot of very loud, which is interesting because and by activists, I mean specifically social justice activists, because there are conservatives that think that I don't know. I don't know. That's none of my business. However, there are a lot of social justice activists, women's rights activists. Can we say abortion? Sometimes I forget what YouTube allows you to say. Abortion activists, access to healthcare activists. That's who ends up paying the price and will pay the price in this more deregulated. It was never really that regulated, but more deregulated state of Twitter, because Twitter has a huge population of angry, conservative trolls, people, which is interesting because that fact that most people can see when you go on Twitter, and why I avoid Twitter like the plague, is diametrically opposed to the fact that in all the statistics that I read, Twitter very much says that the platform is Democratic leaning, that there are more Democrats than Republicans on the platform, which would lead me to believe that your political affiliation ain't got nothing to do with whether or not you're racist. But we already knew that. We already knew that. All right. So on to the layoffs and the lawsuits, which the internet has been working. I'm so surprised for 21 minutes. Let me be quiet before she decides not to. So yesterday and into today, massive lawsuits have occurred at Twitter, not just the executives. It is estimated about 50% of their workforce will be getting laid off, which they always do layoffs before Thanksgiving. It's so trifling. And also, without giving people notice, it is a huge violation of the Department of Labor's WARN Act. So we're going to get into that. So there is now a class action lawsuit against Twitter. And I think this is interesting for numerous reasons, but also good to know if you ever work at a company and they're trying to get you to sign away your rights in certain paperwork, to make sure if you're getting laid off that you're also getting decent severance, because you are most likely owed the severance, whether or not they're telling you. Okay, so we have violation of the WARN Act, which is the federal. Then we have violation of California WARN Act. Most states, not all of the states, have their own WARN Act. New York has their own as well. And I personally am familiar with that when a tech adjacent company I worked at had massive layoffs as well. And it ended up, I would say, okay for most of the employees because they did not do what Elon has decided to do. Okay. So I did block off the people's names, even though this is public information, just because I'm not sure they want like everyone to know their name is on it. Now, the class action complaint against defendant Twitter Inc. for its violation and anticipated further violation of the Federal Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act and the California WARN Act, as described further below. Shortly after the company's purchase by Elon Musk during the first week of November 2022, Twitter began a mass layoff. It has been widely reported that Twitter plans to lay off about 3,700 employees, approximately 50% of its total workforce. Which, if you lay off 50% of the people, like which departments is this? And we have already seen through the reports, a lot of it is the content moderation department. All right, so this is specifically from the U.S. Department of Labor. This is what the WARN Act is supposed to do and why it matters. So, just seeing what's happening here. Not trying to pay the end of year bonuses, child. Exactly. The accessibility engineers. All right. Okay. I was going through comments, make sure everything's all right. Okay. The WARN Act protect workers, their families, and communities by requiring employers with 100 or more employees. Y'all stop arguing, because I can't read it. I can't read the whole thing fast enough to see if it's a good faith argument or not. 100 or more employees, generally not counting those who have worked less than 6 months in the last 12 months, and those who work an average of less than 20 hours a week. So it doesn't count new employees or part-time employees. And this is important to know, like good, just general information, as most people do work for a corporation. To provide at least 60 days calendar advance notice of a plant closing or a mass layoff affecting 50 or more employees at a single site of employment. WARN makes certain exceptions to the requirements when layoffs occur due to unforeseeable business circumstances, faltering companies, and natural disasters. All right. So, with that being said, the way the Warren Act works, the federal one, if you work at a place and there are 100 or more people in your office, in the plant, in the factory, and more than 50 people are getting laid off in your office, you have to be told more than 60 days in advance of being let go. If they tell you the week before, you know what, Stephanie, sorry about it, all y'all got to go, we're closing it down, you are entitled to a certain amount of severance. They cannot just tell you, here's 2 weeks, here's a week, here's nothing. It doesn't work like that unless they meet the exception. Most places do not meet the exception. Twitter doesn't meet the exception because Twitter, they're firing them because Elon wants to fire them. He wants to start over. He wants to run it differently. He doesn't really believe in content moderation. So he's like, what do I need this team for? The legal department? Get rid of the policy people. That's the way he's choosing to do it. He's not qualified to have an exception for this. Important to note, because essentially what the complaint is alleging that Elon did is they didn't tell anybody. And they just did the mass layoff instead, and they didn't give anybody the 60 days notice of termination. Now, most of the layoffs are occurring either in their San Francisco office or their New York office because you have to have 100 or more employees on the site. So if you do remote work, it works completely different because the Warren Act is it's an older law. So it's pre-pandemic. So with remote work, I would assume the Warren Act does need to be updated because it wouldn't provide any protections to remote employees or limited protections. All right. So on to paragraph 28. Elon Musk, who owns Twitter, engaged in similar violations of the Warren Act and the California Warren Act earlier during the summer of 2022, when another company he owns, Tesla, engaged in mass layoffs without providing advance written notice. Several former Tesla employees brought a lawsuit against Tesla for these violations. When informing employees of their layoff, Tesla sought to obtain full releases of all Warren Act and California Warren Act claims in exchange for small severance payments of 1 or 2 weeks' pay, significantly less than the 60 days. They have to, under the Warren Act, give you 2 months of severance. Some companies, because they want less blowback, will give you 3 or 4 months. According to the separate lawsuit against Tesla, which Elon Musk is the largest stakeholder in Tesla and also the CEO of Tesla, Elon had his team go around and say, these factory workers, they don't have sense. I know they're poor. They need money. Go and give them this paperwork and tell them that they can waive their right to the Warren Act. This is not only illegal, it is highly immoral to con people out of money that you legally have to pay them. It is trifling because he is a trifling ass person. And that is how billionaires are made, because they're stingy and they keep all of their money and they do not believe in collective economics whatsoever. And if they did, they wouldn't be a billionaire. Now, a federal court ruled that Tesla's conduct, now the court already ruled this in the Tesla ruling. I think there is a point to be noted, and it's not written into this complaint, but I followed up on the Tesla complaint in 1 second, which the court didn't come all the way through for those people, and it's trifling. A federal court ruled that Tesla's conduct was misleading because the separation agreements failed to inform potential class members of this lawsuit and the rights that they are potentially giving up under the Warren Act. So the court ruled you shouldn't have done that. You can't be conning people. You have to let them know they're entitled to 2 months. It is also using a very exploitative psychological tool. If you know your employees, most people in America, over 50%, are living paycheck to paycheck. You know people are living paycheck to paycheck. They're terrified. You let them go. They're like, okay, crap, I got to get a new job. They need the week's pay. They need the 2 weeks pay, or they're out on the street. That's essentially what the court ruled that Elon and his team did. However, where the court failed these people, they said, you can have your class action. We believe that Elon and Tesla have done you wrong. However, there's an arbitration clause, so please remove yourself from federal court and go to arbitration. Arbitration is notoriously pro-corporation, pro-company, and very much anti-little person. And that's very sad. That is very sad. All right, let me read through the comments because I figured y'all would probably have some questions on this section. Coffee Pleats, the Human Rights Department is gone now too. All these things that actually would protect freedom of speech, protect people who are exercising their right to say, hey, my lived experience in this body as this type of person is not great. Or, you know what, I had a great day, this and that. Or, you know what, these racist trolls are coming at me. All those departments he got away with. He did away with all of them. All right. Confessions of a Jaded Optimist. People are sleeping on the floor at Twitter. Elon expects them to work 24/7. Yes, I heard that today. I think in Apple, like if you have an iPhone, it'll give you like a podcast of news is 10 minutes. So sometimes I try to like listen to it. I feel like I heard that today in their little news segment for the day. We'll get into that. Casey Block, I'll be real, I didn't think Twitter had a content moderation department. One of the employees from the department tweeted out that they got let go. They got some very interesting replies, which we're going to get into in a second. All right. Lamp J, genuinely feel so bad. Twitter employees already got so much shit, now getting fired on top of it. Exactly. Child, I feel bad for them. Okay. And even if you get 2 months of severance, that's not necessarily enough. I believe the statistic, at least it was last year, the average statistic if you get laid off to find a new job is around 3 months. So it leaves you asked out for a while. Also, if you get severance, you cannot, or you're not supposed to, simultaneously file for unemployment. It's either or. Okay. What was the severance? Only New York employees get 90 days. Thinks they're employed, but they're not allowed to work, apparently still paid. I don't know. Just wondering. Makes of it because I'm unsure. Oh, did I miss the question? Oh, I might have missed it. Oh, shit. Seventh, only New York employees get 90 days. Everyone else is 6 days. Yeah, New York is 3 months. Which a good company that doesn't want bad press will give you 4 months. Mm-hmm. Monet, what bothers me, we'll get back after this comment. What bothers me is all the people saying, oh, well, and Elon is right for firing people. Poor people always idolize the wealthy. And that's the problem. At least in the feudal system, people are like, well, I'm never going to be rich, but I suppose I get protection, allegedly. In the feudal system, they told all the serfs, you know what? Work, rent our land, pay us to live on this land, but we'll protect you from the thieves that are outside. Child, always conning poor people. We'll protect you from the thieves. We'll give you protection. We'll give you some types of food, etc. And instead, they just really use the people for military services, etc. Versus now, people are very much convinced if they pull themselves up by the fake bootstraps that they too can be a rich person, when that is not how this works. All right. Oh, now on to the tweets from some former employees. I was fired from Twitter this morning. I was responsible for reporting tweets for content abuse. People then got very spicy with them in the comments. No one is more hated than who speaks the truth. And then they added Elon Musk. At Elon Musk, my friend, see my timeline for responses. This is what you have bought for $44 billion. Pure hatred. Enjoy. The comment section of their tweet was absolutely wild. It was wild. It was people saying, well, you didn't do a good job with content moderation. Other people saying, I have my right to speech. I can say whatever the hell I want. And again, that is not how that works. So this person on the left, Evalorian, if you are a Twitter employee and you participated in the culling of free speech, you deserve every ounce of stress you are feeling right now. To which, shout out to John Kempling, which let me make this a little bigger. John Campling from our beloved Harry Potter. You better sit down for this. Race hate isn't free speech. Ta-da! John Campling played the Death Eater in Harry Potter. So he is on Twitter, fighting with the fake free speech activists. Oh, I think this one, okay. I was going to say, internalized racism. Oh, that one is left over from Kanye. That one is left over from him. So that's where we're at. And let me take a sip and let's get into some comments. Whenever I read Severance, it reminds me of the show. Yes! And now that I have more time, since this is full time, we're going to finally do our review. We're going to finally do our Severance review because I love that show. That show is wild. Oh, Severance. Oh, okay, sorry. I said that apparently they'll be employed till 2nd of February, but with a no work notice. And I wondered how that affected these lawsuits against Twitter. They still, unless they waive their right to join the class action, you can waive your right and say, hey, I'm taking my severance pay, and people don't just give you severance. Once you get severance, you waive your right to sue. So most companies, when they actually comply with the WARN Act, they will give you a no work notice. They'll say, hey, you can't come back to work for these months, but I'm paying you, but you don't come up in my office anymore. And so they'll tell you you don't have to work, and then you can go look for a job. And then they'll insert stipulations that say, if you get a job, you're not getting paid anymore. Yeah. Exactly this, Candace. Marginalized folks' determination to support and root for white supremacy and capitalism is terrifying and wild. Exactly. If you are a marginalized person, none of this benefits you. It doesn't benefit us at all. Do not root for it. We are not going to magically all become Jay-Z and then point at Marcy projects every once in a while and be like, see, look where I came from, and be foolish. It's not happening. It's not happening. This is a great point. S. Content mods get a lot of shit, but people don't realize everything they don't see. That is true. I think they just needed more of them, to be honest, probably. They probably needed more of them. And the policies in place at Twitter were very lax. They needed stricter policies. Aaliyah Muskie been blocking people, child. I'm sure he is. I'm sure he is. Is no work notice a new term for severance? No. It's like a part of the severance. So you get severance, and as a part of it, you usually get a no work notice. So, like, say we worked at Wine and Chill Incorporated, and it's like, man, you know what? It's going to crap. Sorry, the algorithm doesn't like me. We can't afford it anymore. So we're all getting let go, myself included. I would then say, like, hey, no work notice starting November 4th. So we're not going to work, but I'm going to pay you till February 2nd. So the whole thing you're getting is severance. You're getting severance check, but you don't have to work, because some people will make you work up to a certain day. They're like, okay, you're going to work for the next month, and then I'm laying you off. And it's like, well, usually they do it because they figure it's like psychological. If I'm laying you off, you're not going to actually do the labor, which, yeah, if you're about to lay me off, bye. Like, we're not friends anymore. I'm angry with you. So it's more so like a corporate tactic to make sure people aren't like taking documents. They usually will lock you out of all of your accounts too when you get a no work notice. So that way you're not like taking documents, taking company trade secrets, going around and be like, you know what, now that I'm getting laid off, I never liked so-and-so. You know what they're doing in the bathroom during work hours? Nonsense. Like, so that way you're not doing that. All right, so let's go to the beginning. So if you're just tuning in, we have gone through all the slides. So just scroll back to the beginning, because all you're about to see is forehead and comments. Okay. All right. Exactly. We don't need bots to be racist. We got the OGs right here. People like, it reminds me of, so this is in reference to a 500% increase of people using the N-word, hard ER, on Twitter after Elon Musk bought the company earlier last week. And this reminds me of the conversation when we were talking about DEI, that people love to be like, unconscious bias. It's unconscious. I don't know. I didn't do it. Blah, blah. And it's like, no. A lot of this is conscious. You're purposely making the decision to cross the side of the street when you see a Black person. You purposely make the decision in your mind for some odd reason to reach for Black people's hair that you do not know. You're purposely making the decision to say that, hiring people of color, which I hate that term, but hiring people of color is lowering your standard. You're purposely making these decisions. It's not unconscious. Saying that it's unconscious is making racism seem much more light than it is. And it is the huge impact on it is the same with microaggressions, that the new and most used term has for the past 5-ish years has been like, it's a microaggression. Like, no, it's a full aggression. You've ruined my day. I have been aggressed. I'm over it, and likely have fussed you out because of it. All right. Hey, New Nubian. Yeah, he's not a company starter. He's a come in and take the credit. Those people that you do group projects with, and they swoop in and they're like, I did everything because they give the presentation. That's Elon. Hi, boo. Yes, this is a good point. I think ruining Twitter and what Twitter means for some people is going to be one of the worst things that he does. But the worst thing that he is solely responsible for is what is the word? They were building a train system in California. And he came in and was like, I'm going to help build this train system. I believe in this train system, blah, blah, blah. Got all the contracts for the train system. And it's going to be similar to our train/subway system here in New York, etc. Pulled out of it and was like, oh, it would be very weird to travel on public transportation with strangers. Why would anybody want to do that? Because we're poor. And also, it's better for the environment. Public transportation is better for everyone when it is upkept. Put that caveat in there because, child, the train in New York lately, oh my God, mess. Yes, exactly. Shanaria. Freedom of speech allows individuals to express themselves without government interference or regulation. The 3 restrictions: time, place, and manner. Exactly. Exactly. You can't just be saying anything to any old buddy. That's not how this works. And they know that. They know that, but it's their cross to bear. All right. Yep. And that was such an awful thing to see. An awful thing to see. Just taking credit, smiling. I think at one point Alyssa Milano did try to highlight Tarana Burke, but the damage had been done. The damage had definitely been done. Shout out to Kenya. So lovely place and lovely people. Ever heard of KOT, Kenyans of Twitter? We're watching out for Elon too. I have not, but I will peruse for my non-account. You know what? I didn't even think about that pretty brown eyes. Wow. I didn't think about that at all. That is an interesting thought. So America is going to allow someone who isn't even American decide who can say what on an American platform. Wow. Woo. Ben, yes, thank you. I feel insane for feeling like America is feudal. It's very feudal. And I think why people, when you say that to them, other people that don't believe it, why they get very angsty and angry is it can feel very helpless. It can feel very helpless if you realize, like, okay, I did all the right things. I went to school, I worked hard, I got the A's, I did 60, 70, 80 hours of labor. Where is my nice life? And if you do all those things and you don't get it, then it's kind of like, oh, wait. That means you have to push back. That means you have to fight for equality for people. It means you have to actually do something. And people don't like to hear that. People don't like to hear that. And not everybody, but some people. I've had like very long conversations with people about this, which always is very interesting. It's Latasha. America has always been a place where who has the most money controls what happens in America. Exactly. Exactly. Cha. We're overworked. It's too much. It's too much labor over here. It's too much labor. One of the things I learned, and one of my only regrets, having left corporate, not going back, exited that life of being in corporate, was when I worked for the French company. In France, people take 6 to 8 weeks of just summer vacation. It is the norm. It is acceptable. It is highly encouraged. When I worked at this French tech startup in the US, but they were based in Paris, my boss was like, oh, are you what are you doing for summer vacation? It was 2020. Everything was closed. So I was like, well, I've never taken off in summer anyway. Typical living in America all these years. And I was like, like nothing. Like, I guess I'll take a week. He was like, a week? He looked offended. He's like, Stephanie, you take at least 4 weeks. And I was like, and do what? And stupidly, I didn't take the vacation. I still regret that because other places, France, highly problematic, lots of issues. Their hijab ban, foolishness, pure foolishness. Their large amounts of racism that they want to deny, also pure foolishness. What they do well is realizing like, hey, there's a life to live. They also can afford, most people in France, because it's legally written, to have a 4 to 8 week vacation because France is heavily reliant on Central Africa and the countries they formerly colonized. So that's a separate conversation. However, they are definitely taking the time off, which in America, I believe the average American takes a week off, if that. If that. Exactly, Kendron. The nice life is a gamble at best. Exactly. It's a gamble. It works out for some people, it doesn't work out for others, which is why I think in terms of the way in America we're socialized to believe that rich people are rich because they did labor. So if we do labor, we too will be rich. So we should all be so in awe of Elon Musk. Must be a genius to be this rich. No. He does know how to screw over other people. And he lucked up when his one company got sold. That's it. You know who has a similar story, which I think is really interesting? Mark Cuban didn't found the original tech company during the dot-com bust either. He was one of the first employees, and when the company was bought and he exited, he became a millionaire. Tech made a lot of people's lives for them. And then he used that money smartly and invested it into other places. Not everybody just is employee number 3 at AOL. Oh, this is a great point, Candace. It frustrates me that the government didn't make Twitter a utility. It should not be privately owned. It is too important to social cohesion. You can start a war on Twitter. Look what Trump used to do on Twitter. Look what he did. January 6th. Look what he did. Allegedly. Exactly. Because it's never about where you come from. It's about what complexion you are. Honestly, our tax rate is not as low as people think over here. Like, people are conditioned to think like we pay lower taxes in America. Regular people, and I did this math. Y'all know math is not my ministry, so we cannot do it live on the fly because I had to research it and I had to write it out. But there is an old video when we talked about, I think it said billionaires are legally scamming, something like that. The picture is of Bezos, is a big B in me. And in that video, I pulled up a bunch from ProPublica, did a huge expose on how billionaires are paying less in taxes than regular people. And so I showed how much the percentage I pay in taxes a year versus Bezos. Bezos is paying, I think marginally, it might have been around 8%. He also received the stimulus for having 2 children. Bezos. So in America, our taxes for a regular person are on par. They're not that far off from European countries that have embraced pseudo-socialism or socialism. They're not that different. They do have, obviously, way better healthcare than we do. Access to education, I mean, colonizing countries' access to education is interesting, but they do have better access to education, I would say, and all of that. Yeah, in that video, the math is there because I was very flabbergasted when I was reading through that. I was like, wait a minute. Because one of the biggest qualms living in New York is we have city, state, and federal tax. So we pay a lot of tax. And the idea is like we pay all this tax because we have the train. We're supposed to be able to do all these things. And we have those things. However, if I'm paying all this money, why is city so dirty? Why the rats have taken over the city? Why? As Cardi B said, I would like my itemized receipt. I just want to know where it's going. Why has the public library been defunded so bad? It is so sad to me how the public library is treated in New York. Sad. Yep, they sure did give him a stimmy check. They sure did. They sure did give that man a stimmy check. I will link that. I'll link that video. I think it's a good video. I also think it's a good video too, and why I never took it down. There was a other content creator who I don't care. I don't actually remember his name, but he's in that video because he decided to call in live and basically say that capitalism was the best thing since sliced bread, and we need to work harder and we're lazy, and that if you are Black, you need to work harder. This is also a Black man, and it was foolishness. It was foolishness. Like, it was to the point where he was yelling, and it's the first time I had someone call into a live and be argumentative. So he was yelling, and I'm sitting there like, oh, if I yell back, I'm an angry Black woman, so I can't yell back at him, but this is nonsense. But also, no, like, what? Refuse to acknowledge that, if you come from a certain background and you have parents that support you, and you come, like my dad helped me a lot. I had 75% scholarship for college, and my dad used to help me in college. Law school, I paid for the whole thing. And by paid for, I mean, them student loans. But I was like, that's a large reason for my success is my dad, which is why I'm always appreciative to my dad. He didn't want to admit any of that. He's like, I made it by myself. I'm an island. It was a mess. So I will link that video because that is a great video to see of what happens when you internalize capitalism so far into yourself that you can't let it go. You can't let it go. You think you're just going to work yourself there. And it's like, boo, I see you sitting in your office. That live must have been 8:00 at night. You're still in your office. I can see the background in your office. It doesn't seem like capitalism is working for you. It doesn't seem so. It doesn't seem so to me. So I will link that because I think that's like a good video to kind of sum up what we're talking about a little bit. All right. Listen. Felix, the rats and failed train in NYC needs a video unto itself. Why? To get to certain parts of Brooklyn, depending on where you live, there is no direct train. And you're also in Brooklyn. You have to go into the city to then go to other parts of Brooklyn. Is my pet peeve of life. It's foolishness. This thing, I don't know either. And it's I said this on Instagram. If y'all want to follow on Instagram, Wine and Chill is usually like much more casual conversation going on over there. And we have like lots of story times over there. I had one morning because I go to the gym really early. It's dark outside. Now that it's dark, do y'all hear this? I don't know what's happening. Now it's dark outside when I walk back as well. The rats chase me to the street because we don't have alleyways, so they just leave the trash there. So from RGS, I don't know why New York City still sets bags of garbage on the street. We have dumpster technology. And we're paying a pretty penny. We're paying a pretty penny in taxes. So I don't know what they do. I don't know what Eric Adams does with that money, how that money is being allocated, y'all. The menace. And a financial boondoggle. Exactly. It's foolishness. It's foolishness. Listen, the rats have taken over. The rats have taken over. It's bad. It's very bad. Exactly. Well, on that note, I will officially let y'all go and start your weekend. Things we have coming up. I filmed it. It's getting edited currently. We're going to do a video on the Darrell Brooks trial and the complicated rise of sovereign citizens. It's going to be a mix, I would say, of commentary and history and less on the legalese aspects because it was very fascinating. And also doing the history of sovereign citizens, it went down a rabbit hole I was not prepared to go down. So that was interesting. So we are going to do that. Will be coming up. And if there's anything else that y'all want to see, let me know. I know on Patreon we had some requests. We are going to do the affirmative action trial that's currently the Supreme Court. We're going to do that probably on Patreon next Wednesday because we do the lives on Patreon bi-weekly. So we're going to cover that. So that would be really interesting. And I'm trying to think what else. Yeah. So if there's anything else that y'all want to see, let me know and we'll cover that. Okay, just because if y'all don't know, I cannot stand our mayor Eric Adams. Eric is giving y'all's coins to the cops. NYPD is balling. Yes. And you know all they do all day is go on walking tours of the city. That's all I see them doing. In the phone, just walking. I'm telling you, their amount of steps, if they have Fitbits, must be so high. Just perusing around. Mess. All right. Well, I appreciate y'all. I hope you'll have a good weekend. Stay safe and warm. It's like kind of warm and then kind of cold in New York currently. I don't know. Ciao. The earth is tired of us. The earth is tired of us. So I'll catch y'all later. Bye.